I'm Dave from BoyinABand.com, and welcome to Day 4 of the 7-Day Song on Progressive House, sponsored by Filtered.com, the tag-based events search website. Yesterday in Day 3, we made some pads to fill out the breakouts in our track. Today in Day 4, we'll be making a plinky-plonky arpeggiated synth and our final pad, a big warm bassy one, to hug the low end in its oscillatorial embrace. Made-up words aside, let's get on with this arpeggiated synth. Though it doesn't start out too arpeggiated, our little arpeggiator started out on a rural farm far from the city with nothing but a pig and a dream, which is extended metaphor for make a combinator, name it ARP, make a mixer, a Thor instance, initialize it, and open it up. In fact, let's name this Thor instance Peggy. That sounds like the name of a farm girl trying to make it in the big city. Totally appropriate for this situation. So, we're just going to use a simple saw wave up an octave for a source sound. I'm going to take the filter and the envelope to both about a half, just to open up that high end, but only for a moment, since we'll be bringing down the decay in the filter envelope here, all the way down, just to give it that kind of plucked sound like we did in the lead pad earlier in the 7-Day Song. Add the chorus with 3/8 dry wet, so just bring it down to around 35, something like that. So it's a bit thicker. We want a nice and wide arpeggio, since it just feels weird having a synth this high-pitched and fast living in the center of the mix entirely. And then add the delay with tempo sync on, about 4/16, so it's nice and in time as well, just so it feels a bit more epic and hands in the air-ish. Then we have a nice low feedback, so it's not too echoey. And yeah, the dry wet's about fine. Now I'll add in some notes. All right, those notes are in. Now let's take a listen. All right, not too arpeggiaty at the moment, so let's fix that with the puntastic RPG8 arpeggiator. I'm going to suggest a +1 octave shift, so it's even higher. Then it's just a case of picking a mode you like. After a bit of playing, I found that I liked up and down on 4/2. Yeah, 1/16 rate. And mid-gate length. I just thought that resulted in some really nice results with the chords I was playing. So check it out. Sweet! An arpeggiator takes all the notes you put into it and plays them in a different order at the speed you define, allowing you to get some cool and unpredictable results. But you can hear that on each instance of the note being pressed, the notes are so impatient that they can't wait for their turn and end up making an inconvenient chord every time. To fix this little issue, we're going to open the programmer, show programmer, select Thor, or rather Peggy, and in here where it says receive notes, just tick that off. And that will, brace yourself, stop Thor from receiving the notes. Might seem like a silly thing to do, but in this instance we only want the arpeggiator to receive the notes, and as you'll hear, those impatient notes at the start of each MIDI note are gone. You basically starved them of attention to the point where they became useful members of society again. See? The system can work. So, now we have our RPG8 arpeggiator arpeggiating arpeggi. Yeah, that's why I called it Peggy. Let's add some effects and spruce it up a bit. Firstly, reverb, just so it makes it feel a bit bigger and sit in the mix a bit better. So right-click on the mixer, create RV7000 Advanced Reverb. And let's dial it in about half with the aux. Find a preset you like. I found this DRM drum hall was quite nice. Had quite a nice early reflection kind of sound to it, if we have a listen. Except you can't listen because the gate mode is on, so let's turn the gate off. And while we're here, let's bring down the decay a bit. Just so it's a subtle little reverb on top there. So without it, and with it. There we go. Now we want the mixer going into a stereo imager, actually for stereo imaging this time, imagine that. So right click, create, stereo imager, followed by a maximizer. Take the stereo imager's high band up to about 3/4 of the way around just to widen up the high end. And we're going to bring the crossover frequency down to about 300. You can hear if we have it high up, not much is wide. And as we bring it down to about 300 Hertz, we get the mids in there as well. Then we're going to bring up the maximizer's input gain a bit. Turn off the limiter and soft clip the crap out of it. In fact, if we bring that up a bit more. There we go. Et voila, sounding cool. One of the coolest things about ARPs is that a small change in the Thor instance can be magnified so much because the notes are playing so rapidly. So play around with all kinds. Resonance can be quite fun. So can the filter envelope. And of course the source sounds. So just play around and get something you like. And lastly, for the synth making today, we'll look at the bass pad in part 2. See you there!